One of the first things you want to try to do here is establish some views of the model, okay? And if we switch from our render tab here to our view tab, what you can do is use your view manager here in order to save your camera views. So to establish some camera views, what you could do is you could use any of the standard views. You could then, for example, let's say we wanted to do a perspective isometric view of the collapse assembly and use that for our rendering. Using the navigation wheel here, I can switch to perspective by using a right click and selecting perspective. That gives us a little bit more drama. If we use our 3D orbit tool, we can zoom in. We can change our orbit. Okay, and what you're trying to do here is you're trying to get the best view possible, right? And show enough area all around the object. Okay, and here if I use pan, I can center my view. Now you'll also want to make sure that all your settings like facet resolution are set high so we get smooth curves. You might want to double check with your layers, for example. If we take a quick look at our layers here, okay, we put everything into separate layers. You can see we have the center pin, corner pin, disc, end plate, and spacer. And by separating all the parts into their individual layers, we have the added advantage of applying materials by layer, but you could also apply materials by face. So let's just work with one material. We'll work with up to 3 lights, and that'll give you a base studio to work with, and then you'll be able to explore other materials and editing your own materials. So once we have our view here, what we'll be able to do then is to be able to return to this view again and again. We need to save it. So switching back to view, after I changed my parallel to perspective, use 3D orbit, use view manager to save any view in your current viewport. Now, what you want to think about here is when I save a new view, you can give it a name. So this is going to be Southeast ISO perspective, and this is of the collapsed view, right? Since we have 2 model views in there. And also what we can do here is we can indicate the type of camera view. We're just going to use still right now. Here you can see the boundary is going to be the current display, or we could define it as a window. Also, you can see the settings for the current UCS and visual style. Now, the visual style, since we're going to be creating a rendering, the visual style only pertains to the view in the viewport of the model. So that could be the shaded, the hidden, the realistic, any of those views, and we could change it and save it with whatever visual style we like. Okay, we're going to be doing a rendering, so we're going to actually see the final image appear differently. All right. Now, for the background here, you can see we have a default. If you like, you can change it to a solid, a gradient, an image, or actually use the sun and sky. So since we're going to be creating spotlights, we're not going to use any of the natural lighting. All right. And for the background, I'll leave this up to you. You're welcome to use the default, or you could use just a plain white background, okay, which I would strongly suggest, or use a gradient background, okay. We can do some post-render editing in Photoshop to make a composition of our images. If we use the solid here, we can just simply select our colors, click on color here, and for example, if we wanted to just use white, right, just a white solid background, we could do that, or black solid background. But remember, when you print, that's more ink. All right, so this is just setting up the view, the camera view. So notice right now, If you look at the settings, you can see the name and all of the other settings saved with it. You can always come back here and be able to change these settings and update your camera view. Alright, so when I click apply and OK, and as I change my views while I'm working with the model, let's say we go back to parallel, right? At any time, I can use a number of ways to access my custom model view. So that brings me right back into the view that I want. And remember, it's the view in the current viewport that's used to render the image. All right, so we've saved a view here.